Welcome to Every Child Belongs. I'm Kim Botto, an adoptive mom, grandma, an advocate for kids and teens with disabilities, as well as a longtime leader of kids and student ministries. In this show, we explore how we can create spaces where every child feels heard and valued, whether neurodivergent, differently abled, or they've experienced trauma. Every child belongs. We'll hear from educators, parents, professionals, and more, finding practical ideas that help build a compassionate and supportive world for every child. Let's get started. I've got my friend Brianna Edwards. Golly, we probably met 6 or 7, 8, 9 years ago. You weren't even married when we first met.
Really?
Yeah.
I don't even remember that. That's so fun.
Yeah, I don't think you were. Well, I'll help you recall. The first time we met was at a conference, and I think we were on a panel together, and afterwards you told me, "You and mom would be you guys would be best friends." And I'm thinking, "Okay, like maybe." But basically, you set me up with one of my BFFs because you did introduce us, and we are friends, and whenever we're in the same location, we hang out, and she's usually my Uber driver when I come to Orlando.
That's true.
Yeah, she's great. So anyway, everybody, we have Brianna Edwards on. Brianna is a licensed mental health counselor. She's a registered play therapist. She lives in Orlando, Florida. She works with kids, teens, and parents, and she's been doing this for over a decade, almost a decade. You're also a parenting coach, a conference speaker, and Brianna, you're a brand new author of a beautiful children's book, The Little Roo Who Stuffed Her Stuff. And then you're also the mama of 2, precious little girl and precious little boy.
Mhm.
So what did I leave out? What do you want people to know about you?
I mean, that pretty much sums it up. Right now, I am really leaning into the stay-at-home mom life,
Yeah.
and so, yeah, but I love still speaking on the side and getting to do things like this.
Yeah, there's seasons for things in our life. We adjust and then we adjust again. So, good for you. I mean, good for you for adjusting. So, we're going to dig right in. And I have heard you speak a number of times, and you are a play therapist, and you talk about how important play is. And adults, I think sometimes as adults, we minimize the value of play. So you even say that through play therapy, kids can feel, heal, learn, and grow. So for those of us parents or people who work with kids that don't have training in this, how can we use play to create safe spaces for kids?
Yeah, well, are you okay if I just back up and even explain what play
Yeah,
therapy is? Because
please.
some people might not even know, like, I
Great.
kind of a foreign term to some people.
Yes, great.
Well, basically, play therapy is just that. Like my office is a playroom and it we believe that play is a child's language and toys are like their words, if you could
Mm,
say that. And so I am specifically trained to utilize art and toys in order to connect with kids and help them process their hard experiences and also just how to cultivate conversations, hard conversations maybe, or conversations about feelings using toys where it's at a developmental level where they're able to maybe engage better or they're able to connect better. And because kids' brains aren't fully developed, they can't use words the way that, we might if we're in therapy and sitting on a couch across from another adult. That's not the way to do therapy with kids. It really the most effective is to utilize play therapy in order to get on their level, and it's so powerful. The things that I've seen are just incredible, like where I can have the background knowledge, in talking to a parent of what's going on in the child's world. And then I see it played out with toys in my dollhouse or in my fan tray. And it's like, whoa, it's just crazy the things
mhm,
I've seen. So
mhm.
it's so powerful. So I guess to answer your question then about, you know, what parents can do or other leaders or whoever's listening, like how can adults outside of the play therapy setting incorporate play, or was that kind of your question?
Yes, yes, you've worded it actually much better than I did. Yes. How can we use play?
I would say it's an opportunity for connection. So we even in one of the therapy modalities, or that's a fancy word for like types of techniques that I use.
Yes.
We do like activity sessions where I mean, this is something that any adult could do, a particular a parent, this would be beneficial, is you get a box of toys and you set a special playtime with your child. So even just if it's 30 minutes once a week, you set a low bar and only 30 minutes for this particular thing. And you let the child lead for that whole 30 minutes. And you're only doing things that are in that box in order to let them feel seen, heard, valued, and loved. That you are in their world with them. We're not asking questions. We're not like probing for answers about how school's going or what's hard in their lives. We are just being with them. And that helps to, you know, deepen our connection with our child. And from there, then we build more felt safety to be able to have other conversations late at a later time. That's one structured way that we can use play. We can also just over a game of Uno or something. We can or doing an activity with our child that is disarming, then engage in asking some questions that they might be a little bit more resistant to answer otherwise. And so, gosh, there's so many different ways, but play disarms the fear response for any of us.
Mhm.
When we're laughing, when we're playing, we're more relaxed
Yes.
and it's connecting. And so the more that we can lean into that, it's just so powerful for our relationship with the child across from us, and then helps us to deepen and maybe go places that would be hard to go otherwise.
Yes, I mean, I've seen that play out. I mean, with a group of students in small group, nothing of substance is talked about, but then we pick up a ping pong paddle, play a little ping pong, and all of a sudden, as we're laughing and playing, things come out.
Yeah.
So I love
Yeah.
that strategy of just having a box and setting a timer. And you
Mhm.
can do it. You can play for 30 minutes. Brianna, so often we see one behavior and we make an assumption about the why behind it, but often there's something else underneath. So can you give us some examples where we might be misinterpreting what a behavior is and what it's about?
Yes, example comes to mind where a child comes into my play therapy office and crawls under the chair, melting down, screaming, angry, aggressive. He was hungry. He had a need that was unmet. That is such a basic one that is often missed. But I mean, obviously, there's so many other things. Even coming home from work, you let out your anger maybe on a spouse, and underneath, you just had a really bad day at work. And he doesn't know that, and you haven't shared that, but he's getting the leftovers, the spillover. And so there's oftentimes things floating under the surface that are unseen. It can be hurts, sadness, um, pain, it can be bullying, it can be traumas, it can be hunger, thirst,
Mhm.
sleeplessness. I mean, there are just sensory needs. There are so many things that we don't see, at with our eyes, but that are going on underneath that can be contributing to the big behaviors that are coming at us.
You know, another thing that you talk about a lot is repair because we're all going to mess up. Whether we're a kids ministry leader or a parent, we are going to respond in ways that then we look back on and maybe in the moment we go, "Oh, I wish I hadn't said that. I wish I hadn't done that." So talk to us about what repair even means and what that would look like.
Yes. Well, first, to understand repair, we need to know rupture, which is an attachment term of just like a breaking connection between two people. And that can look so many different ways. It can be something small or it can be something so big. And so, really, what we're wanting to do in repair is to bring that connection back in our relationship. And again, or not again, but just this applies to anyone, any of our relationships. Yes, with our kids, of course, or kids we're working with, but also with other adults. And so I believe that it's our job as the adults to initiate repair, and repair could look like a conversation. It should involve a conversation at some point, depending on the age of the child or the person that's going to dictate what's said in the conversation. Like with my 2.5-year-old, when I mess up, I will, in seeking to repair and just build, healthy patterns for myself as a mom, I'll say, "Buddy, I am so sorry I raised my voice at you. That's not the mommy I wanna be. Can I try that again? Can I say it to you in a different way?" What mommy should have said was, "Buddy," there's a specific example where he dumped ant killer
Oh,
all over himself, and there was, like,
yikes.
sticky goo everywhere, and I was like, "Buddy, what happened? Oh my gosh." I was like, "Why did you do that? Mommy's trying to do laundry, why?" And he didn't know what it
Right.
was. He was just, like, experimenting and found it on the floor, and, like, I left it out too visible, and so I later on, I was like, "Buddy, I'm so sorry. Mommy shouldn't have yelled at you. That was not mommy was not being a kind mommy. I wanna be a kind mommy, and I wanna be gentle, and so what I wish I would have said was, "Buddy, oh my goodness, you found the sticky stuff. Can we work on cleaning this up together? Because this isn't for playing with." And so in that moment, the conversation at a very dumbed down level, I was apologizing and acknowledging and owning my role of what I did wrong. And then also like creating a new template of how what I wish I would have done, doing a redo, and modeling for him so many different things in that one conversation.
Right.
And in that small thing, we were able to reconnect. And if I would have taken it a step farther, it would have been helpful to even do something playful after that for us to really seal the deal and reconnect in in an even better way. But that's just one example, but I think it's initiating a conversation, owning our role in what happened and acknowledging where we went wrong, not placing blame on the other person and saying, "Well, if you wouldn't have done this," and like if this is about us using I statements, apologizing for what we did, and then forgiving as needed, and then creating a plan for next time. Next time this happens, what can both of us do differently so that we don't end up here again? And one of the, tools you can do is a redo where
Right.
you're encouraging a child to redo a behavior, or you as the adult is redoing something in order to model just healthier behaviors and how to handle your emotions.
Yeah, I love redos because redos is actually giving them and us an opportunity to do it right. We get to practice.
Right.
Now, I just want to point out, you said he was only 2.5 years old at the time.
Mhm.
So there's really no age that's too young to do repair and ask for forgiveness.
Mm-mm.
I would even go to say that your kid doesn't have to be able to even be verbal when you do
Mm-mm.
this because you're modeling.
Right. You're modeling, and I mean, I'm still my kids are still young, so, you're much more experienced from the parenting side than I am, but I will say I think we create patterns with ourselves. We replicate the attachment patterns or the relational patterns that were done with us. And so we're going to default to what's familiar. And so it takes intentional practice over and over and over again in order to build new templates of how to interact with kids, because what our default might be a little bit more unhealthy, or we might be more likely to ignore or dismiss or just like brush under the rug or be more reactive. And so by practicing, we're able to get comfortable maybe when kids are younger, so that as they get older and their behaviors or their attitudes get a little more scary,
Mhm.
we've already built some muscle memory to make it more comfortable to repair with our kids, if that makes sense.
Yes, that makes total sense. Yes, practice on the little things so when the big things come up, you can hit that free throw because you practice
Right.
with no pressure, with no people against you. We had a conversation in a gas station where it was a whole bunch of things. I have a child who her chronological age and her developmental age don't match. And she wanted to do something that was way, I would consider it didn't match her chronological age. And you helped me look at, well, what's the goal? Are you trying to get her to do adult things? And I want you to know that we booked it. Well, you already know. We booked a trip to Disney after that, even though she was an adult. And then also in talking about kids who are neurodivergent, the importance of them knowing what their diagnosis is, because at that point, she had not been diagnosed, and based on your encouragement as you pumped gas, she did get diagnosed, and it made a huge difference in her life. So talk to us about that, because I think labels often get a bad rap, but they can really help us. So for somebody who maybe has a kid that they think maybe something's going on, but they're not sure, how would you encourage them, that parent?
Yeah. You're right. Labels can be so negative, but they can also be liberating,
Mm.
because when we know what's really going on, it feels more controllable
Oh,
and
yeah.
it feels like we can name what's happening, and it can actually be almost a sigh of relief for you as the parent or the adult, or for the child themselves, or for your daughter, she was on the older side, like, it just to be able to explain, oh, this is why
Mhm.
I am this way. Maybe they've been bullied or there's been behaviors that are unexplainable, and it's like, what is we've just been scratching our heads, what's going on? And it's been frustrating for everyone. But then when it's like, oh, this explains it, that can just take so much of a burden off.
Right,
And I've seen that
right.
over the years with a number of parents that were maybe resistant to get a diagnosis, but then once they went through the official testing and they were able to get a diagnosis, it was like, okay, this makes sense. I finally feel like I know what's going on, and that feels somehow less frustrating.
Mhm.
And maybe that's relatable to you.
Oh, very, yeah, very extremely relatable. Yes, that's probably why you strongly encouraged, kinda pushed us to go ahead and do it. Yeah. If you're loving today's conversation and want to dive even deeper into creating spaces where every child belongs, check out my book, Boundless Hope. It's packed with practical tools, real stories, and powerful insights to help you make a difference. Get yours today. Just head to kimbotto.com or Amazon to order now. So, talking about kids who are different, there's a lot of kids who are different, who may have a diagnosis, who may not, but they may have big behaviors. They come into churches, and sometimes, often, actually, it's 48% now, these parents then are either asked to leave or they don't feel welcome at the church. So, what encouragement would you give to churches when they encounter a child that has a big behavior and they're not sure what to do with? What are some steps you would give them to engage with and respond to that child?
The first thing that came to mind was you don't have to have all the answers. Like, as the church leader, you don't have to have all the answers. And I think even from the therapist side, just being honest, like, I think therapists often feel like we have to have all the answers when a client is coming to us. And it's really best practice for us to say, "You know what? I don't know, but I'm gonna find out for you. And I wanna stick with you and help you. And I'm gonna do whatever I can in order to get the answers that you need. Talk to colleagues or just connect with others to get resources." And I think that same principle can apply to churches where you don't have to have all the answers. You don't have to know everything about this diagnosis, but if you lean in with love and you take a humble approach of, "You know what? I just want to be here to help you and find some answers for you. Like, can I just stick with you? It might be a little bit bumpy because we're still kind of new at this, but we're not abandoning you. We're going to stick with you and we're going to figure it out together." I feel like that approach can apply no matter what circumstance you're in, no
Yes.
matter what church background, to just take a place of humility. I know that's like such a general answer, but I think we can put pressure on ourselves to feel like we've got to know it all and do it all. And when we don't, then it's like, oh, well, we're sending the people away because we don't have the answers. But I think what families need is just acceptance and love and to be welcomed and let's let's figure it out. And so many of these kids just need a friend,
Right.
who are
Right.
bullied other places and don't feel accepted. Like the church should be modeling Jesus, and Jesus is so accepting of kids and loving of kids and of all backgrounds. And so, how can we practically show that?
Yeah, I think, you talked about being liberated when we find out a diagnosis. I think you've also helped liberate us by saying we don't have to have all the answers. And I would say too that the kids need a friend and the parents need a friend too.
Mhm.
Because parents who have kids with big behaviors and confusing needs often feel very isolated. If you were going to give the church a couple ideas, practical things that they could do, maybe in their environment or in working with their volunteers to make their space more welcoming for every kid, especially those kids with big behaviors, what are some ideas that you would have for them?
Yeah. Okay. Great question. Um, I would say there's so many practical little adjustments that you can make. And even one of the places you could start is just looking at your sensory environment, because I know even my son, who at this point I don't believe has any diagnoses, but he gets really overwhelmed and he is highly sensitive. And so, like, just if you go walk into your ministry from the eyes of a child who could be feeling really overwhelmed or get a lot of sensory stimulation, that could help us pinpoint little changes that we make. So maybe we can tweak the lighting. Maybe it's not in every room, but maybe in one room. We
Mhm.
could dim the lights a little bit more. We could have less people. We could have noise canceling headphones. We could have even just a basket that I've seen churches like put a basket in, various rooms. If you can, all rooms, great, where it's just a sensory friendly basket where if a child needs some quiet time, they can go to the corner, and this is a place that they can go to meet their needs. And maybe this applies a little bit more to older kids, but or if you have space to have a designated room when a child is melting down and a danger to themselves or others, is there a space, even just a corner, that you could have a bunch of pillows or padded items that they're not going to be grabbing things and making them weapons for towards you or someone else? They're just small modifications, and I say they can be done anywhere.
Right.
I've seen literally, one church in my area used a giant refrigerator box
Yes.
and made that as like a calming space where a child who was feeling overwhelmed could just go and feel secure. It doesn't have to be fancy. You could get a nice tent, but you don't have to.
No, you
Get
don't.
a refrigerator box and throw some pillows in there, and there's just so many ways to think outside the box.
Literally outside the box.
Yes,
Yeah,
literally.
I love the appliance box idea. And, you said look at your room through the eyes of a child. What we would do often is we would go in the room and actually get on the child's level. I mean, no kids were in
Mhm.
there. So in the baby rooms, we're crawling on the floor. In the toddler rooms, we're walking around on our knees to see what is in our visual space. What do we have access to? That's a great idea.
That's so good. Yeah.
Brianna, we learn so much from siblings of kids who have special needs, disabilities, and you had a precious little brother, Nathaniel, who was born when you were 5 years old, and he had a lot of complex medical needs. And I would just love to know from your perspective, what was it like to be a sibling of Nathaniel? I know that he was precious and smiled a ton and also had a lot of extra needs. So, what did you learn, and what would you like us to know about siblings of kids that have extra needs?
Yeah. I would say that the our life was just very different and consuming, and I mean, my memories tend to be a bit fuzzy in that season of life. Pictures help, but one thing I do remember for sure is just all of the appointments.
Mhm.
We always had someone in our space for, I mean, he had a lot of complex medical needs, so we had therapists or doctors or nurses at our house constantly. We were always going to appointments. We flew around the country for surgeries. I mean, that's just not a quote unquote normal life for a child. And
Correct.
so just the things, just simple things. My parents worked so hard to try to give us, a normal life or just have special experiences with us. But as a parent, I can understand like how stretched thin you are. And as much as you might want that one on one time with all kids or want to make things special, there are demanding needs from maybe one particular child that can't be ignored. I
Mhm.
mean, in this case, it was life or death.
Right.
You can't ignore those needs. And so I think just there was a lot of sacrifices that were made on for me and my sister as siblings, and then also obviously for my parents. And I think maybe the biggest impact that I felt was when he died and the emotional toll that that took on
Mhm.
our whole family, um, which would be a natural segue to my book. But also, I did want to answer your question about just siblings in general because I've worked with a number of siblings of special needs kids. I've worked with, kids with special needs themselves, but there was one client I had in particular that really impacted me because, he had 2 special needs siblings, and he came in for mental health counseling, and he wanted a diagnosis
Oh.
because he wanted to feel special like his
Mhm.
siblings. They got so much attention. I remember that there were safety issues in the home where he would have to hide, and we were coming up with a safety plan so that his sibling wasn't hurting him. And so just to live in that hypervigilance, that was not my story.
Mhm.
That was his story, but to live in hypervigilance all the time with the sibling who's aggressive, that's one side of things. And then also just to feel like I'm not good enough or I'm not special enough or I need a disability to feel like I can get attention or
Mhm.
I can like, I don't know, it was so impactful for me,
Yeah.
that how it hit with him and how he was processing this, and so, we were working on ways that he could find other outlets to get some of those needs met, but I think he's not the only one
Of course not.
walking that road,
Of course not.
where I just wanna feel special and loved and like I get attention too and I'm seen and loved also.
You said you worked on some ways for him to get those needs met. What are some particular strategies that you all came up with?
I think it's been a while, but I will say connection with his parents or caregivers, just how can there be special times, one-on-one times with parents where they're doing something special, even if it's just like that special playtime, like I mentioned, where it doesn't have to be anything fancy. You don't have to be going and spending money and doing things, but even just 30 minutes of presence together where I'm fully engaged. And I'm not a special needs parent, but it's hard for me to do this as with my set of circumstances. And so I have so much empathy in trying to understand how hard that must be to have the time and emotional capacity to give that when you're empty.
Right.
But as much as even just sprinkling and okay, maybe not 30 minutes, can you give 15? Or just what are moments of connection where you're doing something that your child really enjoys to enter their worlds. And then finding things too that that child is good at naturally,
Mhm.
strengths and giftings, and calling those out and encouraging and using, I mean, this is like kind of a technicality with language, but just affirming like, hey, you really have a gift of um knowing how to kick that soccer ball, or you are so thoughtful with the way that you do this, or you are such a hard worker with your schoolwork, and calling out the character qualities that you see to be affirming, not just like fluffy praise of, oh, you're the best at this or great job, like, but really getting into like, what are the character qualities that you're seeing? What are the giftings that God has given that they're displaying? And calling those out or leaving little notes of encouragement. Those are all different ways for the child to feel seen.
Yeah, and I love how you gave us specific examples. You call out the character quality and then the specific way you see the character quality. And some might be
Mhm.
listening and go, but I have a 2-year-old. Well, kicking the soccer ball, the example you gave, or being creative in the way they play with their Legos. That's so
Yeah.
helpful. Well, I know Nathaniel's life. He was only here on Earth for 4.5 years, but he continues to have an impact through the work that your family is doing. But then you just mentioned, as you were talking about that, your book.
Mhm.
Did Nathaniel impact you writing your book? Like, tell us about your motivation.
Well, I would say my motivation for writing my book is was twofold. The biggest primary reason I will say I will give to my clients, but I'm also gonna weave in my story to it also. I was seeing this pattern with my clients where there was a lot of stuffing feelings, where just things were pushed down and not dealt with in the goal of protecting a parent. Just even in talking with a teenager who had lost a loved one at age 5 or something, and in processing that and this like unprocessed grief, it's like, well, did you talk to your mom? Like, what was your mom in all of this? And the teenager being like, "No, I didn't wanna upset my mom. I didn't wanna see my mom sad, or I didn't want, like, I knew she was already carrying so much." And this is like maybe a 15-year-old talking about a 5-year-old experience
Hmm.
that was felt and remembered, that as a 5-year-old not wanting to burden a parent, I mean, that's pretty significant, right? Like,
Right.
and so I was seeing this kind of repetitively where kids just didn't feel comfortable sharing their emotions with their parents. And I wanted to, I love using books in therapy when I'm working with kids, and so I wanted a
Yes.
conversation starter and something that we could talk about on this topic. And I think from my personal side, I was a suffer. And I did not, when my brother died, I didn't feel comfortable talking to my parents. I carried a lot of grief on my own for years. And I just kind of push things down, and so my story is interweaved with her story. I don't cognitively remember wanting to protect my parents, though I imagine that could be a subconscious
Mhm.
thing in there, but I do know that I felt uncomfortable talking about sadness. That
Mhm.
just was something I didn't feel comfortable putting words to. It felt too vulnerable. And so this book provides a template to help kids see how they can use their words and talk about feelings, how they can ask for help from a trusted adult, how it's not really the best choice to take responsibility for a parent, that it's not their job to do so. And then from the parent side, it shows how parents can be warm and attuned and how they can lean in to help meet their kids' emotional needs. And there's a bunch of, I have pages in the back with just tips of how to walk your kids through conversations and how to be available to them. And it's not something that comes natural for every parent, because again, we parent the way we were parented. And so we can work to change those things. And some of these tips and tools help with that.
Yeah, so Little Rue Who Stuffed Her Stuff is the name of the book, and it's available on Amazon. And my husband was actually reading it to one of our preschoolers just last week. And there was some really great conversation that came up about feelings. And as you said, I think children's books can also help us as parents, give us language and strategies. And that book does that too. So get that book, people. Well, Brianna, I always love being with you in person or virtually. And we end this podcast with just a couple rapid fire questions. Okay. So you
Okay,
ready? Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Okay. It's the morning. Coffee, tea, or something else?
Coffee. Decaf.
Really?
Yeah.
So you just like the taste of it?
I love the taste, but regular coffee makes me too jittery,
Oh,
so.
okay. Okay. You're on a long drive. What's on your playlist or podcast queue?
Ooh, birthing podcasts,
Oh,
or I have parenting podcasts,
uh-huh.
or worship music.
Okay, great. And it probably depends on whether you got the kiddos in the car too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yes. And if so, then I'm listening to preschool music,
Yes,
so.
yes, yes. What's your most memorable gift from your childhood?
We got a little Yorkshire Terrier right after my brother died, and my
Oh,
parents surprised us for Christmas a month after he died, and that was the best gift.
dogs rank up there as most memorable gift for a lot of people. So
Mhm.
well done, Marie and Tim. That's your parents. If you could only eat one food, what would it be?
The first thing that came to mind was bread. So we'll go with that.
You go, girl. I'll send you a loaf of bread. Okay, and the last one is finish this thought. Every child,
Matters.
they do. They do. And your work helps us understand that. So thank you. If somebody wants to get in touch with you, besides getting your book on Amazon, how can they get in touch with you, Brianna?
My website is a good place, breezecounselingcorner.com, and also my email directly is Brianna, Brianna at breezecounselingcorner.com.
Great. Brianna, thanks for being with us.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for joining me today on Every Child Belongs. If you found today's episode helpful, please take a moment to like, share, and subscribe to the podcast. And don't forget to share this with a friend who might need to hear it. Together, we can create a world where every child belongs.